All right, let's see. Let's talk about other forms of autism-assisted dog placements. North Star is not the only organization out there. We are one of the first, though. North Star, Four Paws for Ability, Autism Service Dogs of America, and National Service Dogs up in Canada. I think those were the first four organizations, at least that I heard of. The other three organizations make their placements in a more traditional way. And by traditional, I mean they're borrowing more from the readily accepted concept of assistance dogs, like for guiding eyes or CCIs, wheelchair dogs. And the typical placement would have a pup like this in a puppy raising home already and stay there for about 16 months, 15, 16 months, and then they get pulled back to the mother facility and they get trained in a kenneling type situation. And at the end of that period of kenneling, the prospective teams come to this organization and you have a 2-week period where they partner you up and try to give you the handling skills. In addition to selecting the dog that they have available that makes the most sense for their client. Now, there's several ways, and I still think this is a good philosophy, by the way, for seeing eye, wheelchair, predominantly any adult with a physical challenge. But for children with social, emotional, and educational challenges, I don't think this is the best method. And one of the main reasons is that I don't think that children with autism readily take to going someplace for 2 solid weeks and then coming home. I think that that's apt to really upset them. And if a child's upset, the whole family's upset. So I don't think they're going to be having a good time or attending as they should during this 2-week period. And unfortunately, in most of the organizations, there is very little follow-up. Now, think of these services I've just described as a pat of butter. What North Star does is to spread the butter over the course of about a year, maybe 14, 16 months. And we try to get the pups out to where their children are, as young as possible, typically in a puppy raising home. And then the children start to have visits once a week with their pup. At first, the trainer's there to supervise them, make sure that the child's family knows how to supervise and how to make the best use of the dog. And there's also a time for educating the child. For instance, we are very careful not to work with any children that are aggressive toward animals for obvious reasons. But we will sometimes work with children that need to be educated about how to express affection to a dog, which really, in my mind, is most children need that lesson, some more than others. So, for instance, a child with autism might pet a dog this way against the grain of the fur. And one thing that's interesting is that you'll see, I obviously love these puppies, but I don't really treat them like glass. I treat them sort of goofy. And the reason is that I want them to be exposed to all kinds of goofy touches, even ones that are mildly uncomfortable. Like we have a focus with our teaching training on teaching the child to pet with the grain of the fur, to not poke those little fingers in the ears, even while the dog's prepared to have those touches. Safety is obviously a very big concern of ours. And this is one reason that we don't employ a concept called tethering. I believe the way to keep children safe with their autism assistance dog is to play all kinds of hide-and-seek games with the dog and the child. It is impossible to teach a dog anything, or dogs this age, outside the context of play. So if we turn search and rescue into a game, then this prepares them well for that terrible day that everyone hopes won't come. Now, interestingly, there have been 6 times now in the past 10 years that North Star children have remained safe because of their North Star dogs. And every time it happened a little bit differently, and never was it something that we specifically trained for, which made a big impression for me, because we did specifically train a lot of dogs for this search and rescue mission. There was one dog, No More, up in Vermont, that Kathy actually trained No More to read, to recognize the stop sign, which was awesome. And she trained No More to block her son, Jake, in flight with the help of trainer Pam Murphy up in Northampton. And Kathy and Pam put in hour after hour after hour of this training and practice. I give Kathy a lot of credit for her diligence. However, not once did it keep Jake safe, this training that No More had. And the reason is, if your child is darting away, you're going to rightly reach out and grab, or run and grab, rather than giving a command and losing precious seconds with your dog. That said, when the 6 times our children did wander, their dogs kept them safe primarily by the skill of following their child, shadowing. Now this is something we do at North Star as a matter of course. When the dog begins to have visits with their child, any puppy is going to jump up and follow a child who suddenly leaps up and leaves the room. And so all we do is reinforce that. We reinforce it heavily for the pup jumping up and following a child with autism, as opposed to when they jump up and follow anybody else around. We don't necessarily reinforce that, but we do when the pup does it for the child that we're serving. And this was how primarily the children were returned. They would wander away, the dog would follow them, and with their tag, people would read the tag and bring the child home. I try not to be a bad influence on these pups, and it's easy to be. For instance, up until recently, I allowed these puppies to mouth me. Hey, excuse me. Come here. Come here. I allowed them to mouth me. You see they're trying right now. The reason I do this is you'll notice when the pups are playing, they mouth each other. And it's not enough to say this is how pups play with each other. There's a reason for pups play. And the reason that these guys do it is to learn to inhibit the strength of their developing jaws. So, what I do is, in addition to keeping the litter together for a long time, so that they, well, to 4 months, so that they really develop a very soft mouth, I let them also mouth me, giving them feedback. In other words, if they bite down too hard, I will yip, just like you heard them yipping there, and turn my back, and that's my communication to them. Oh, you've gone too far. And they don't like to go too far. They really don't like to make me annoyed. They get very anxious, but I forgive them right away, because really pups have maybe a 30-second memory of transgressions. So after about 30 seconds, you've made your point, and you want to try to forgive your pup. Really, the basic tenets of raising pups in a positive way, and North Star's tenets, is reward the behavior you like to see, ignore when you can, because you don't want to be scolding all the time, but you need to scold when you have to, and then forgive right away. And that's not bad tenets for parenting either. And most families will tell me of children who face challenges. Most of them will tell me that ABA and our positive dog training principles are really quite similar. And that's all to the good, because that just means that you've got a real positive household that you're working with in terms of the communication.